friends, how are we? Welcome to the Eagle Bearer's Guide, episode 3. Wow, isn't that fun? If you're new here, hi, I'm Ree. Nice to meet you. I love the Assassin's Creed games, and the Eagle Bearer's Guide is my little series that I came up with where I use the Assassin's Creed games as a springboard to discuss the archaeology, the history, and the mythology included within them. This week we are unfortunately not joined by Cassandra the Eagle Bearer herself, although she's the namesake of this whole series. We're joined actually by Eivor the Wolf-Kissed of the Raven clan, as she joins us on our travels to Housesteads Roman fort. The Assassin's Creed franchise, now more than ever, they've done it the whole time, but now more than ever, pride themselves on working with archaeologists and historians to make sure the games are as historically accurate as possible and to figure out which ancient monuments would make the best climbing frames. I would also like just to state for the record, for the court, for the jury, that I am an archaeologist and an ancient historian currently doing my MSc at uni. So I kind of know what I'm talking about, friends. That being said, if you have any questions or concerns, or if you think I'm just blatantly wrong about something, feel free to raise your hands in the comments below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I do not mind being corrected, obviously. I think that's a sign of a good scholar and a good academic is when you don't actually mind being corrected. Too many of you take offence to that. I'll also leave my bibliography in the description box below. Probably I'll try and leave a lot of links just because I like to make sure it's as accessible as possible. And unlike episode 1 and episode 2 of this series, I did actually look at the Discovery Tour this time. The in-game Discovery Tour. And there was nothing on the entirety of Hadrian's Wall or Housesteads fort specifically. It's fine, I'm not angry about it. I'm not angry about it. The Discovery Tour is like a game within a game anyway, so maybe if I actually played through the story, maybe there would have been something, but I did not have the time nor the patience, so I didn't bother. But I did have a quick look at it, and there was nothing. So, sorry. And of course, here is your regular spoiler warning. This video will include very, very minor spoilers of the game Assassin's Creed Valhalla. If you've not played it yet and you want to play it, maybe go watch this instead. Ha ha ha. I'm getting better at that. I don't know. However, these spoilers, if they really are spoilers, are very, very minor. Don't really pertain to the main storyline at all. I had to really go out of my way to find Housesteads, so it's not a main story point at all, I can assure you. But there's your spoiler warning, so don't attack me, please and thank you. Alright, and with that, let's get started. Let's go and see Eivor. Fun fact about Housesteads, I've never been, but I drove by and we parked in the car park for a little bit, but I couldn't see over the wall from where I was sat in the bus. Housesteads is one of the many Roman forts along the line of Hadrian's Wall, Perineum Valley, if you will, if you'll allow me to flex my Latin knowledge there. If you've been around this channel before, you know that I love Hadrian's Wall. I just think it's so great. I just really do. I couldn't really tell you why, just do. But I do plan on making a whole video about the wall itself, so I'm going to try not to digress too much here. But just for some background context, Hadrian's Wall was constructed between AD 122 to around AD 132, I believe, around 10 years. And Housesteads, being a fort that kind of builds part of the wall into its structure, was also built probably within the same 10 years. Although the Romans didn't call it Housesteads, by the way, it was called VERCOVICIUM. VERCOVICIUM, say that 10 times fast. And it's thought to have been garrisoned by 1,000 to like 10,000 men. There's a lot of sources with a lot of different numbers, so I just thought I'd give you the broad maximum of 1,000 to 10,000. But of course, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is not set in Roman Britain. It's set a very, very long time after that, after the Romans left Britain in 410 BC. BC? Am I going nuts? AD, sorry. So the fort that is included within the game, along with the entirety of Hadrian's Wall, is pretty much in ruins, right? It's not survived very well at all. On top of that, it's covered in snow for some reason. So not everything is visible, but the bits that are visible are actually pretty cool, if you don't mind me saying. The Housesteads fort in particular is archaeologically very rich. It's one of the best preserved forts in the whole of Britain as well, and it's been very, very well excavated. In the game, they've obviously shrunken the fort. This is not the full extent. They have not made this a one-to-one recreation, which can be said for the entirety of Hadrian's Wall and the majority of monuments that are included across all the Assassin's Creed games. I'm sure some of the monuments that are a bit more important will be closer to the real size to give that kind of sense of wonder and awe and whatever, but for little Housesteads Roman fort in Hadrian's Wall. They've very much shrunken it. I've not finished Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'm taking my time, right? But you've seen the video. I had to go out of my way to find Hadrian's Wall to see if it was even included in the game. It is not central to the storyline at all. They've just used it as the northern border for the map. But they didn't have to include that. They could have easily just cut it off with water or a mountain range or something. But no, they actually included Hadrian's Wall, which is really nice. On top of that, they chose to include Housesteads for some reason. There's many forts along Hadrian's Wall, as I said earlier, but they decided to include Housesteads for some reason, which I think is great, because they could have just had the wall. There was no need for them to really put a fort on it as well. But it makes me happy. It sure does. For some imagery comparison, because we all love that, I have taken some in-game photographs, as I love to do, because it's a beautiful game. I tried to get these as much of like a bird's eye view as possible. Sorry, it's hard when you're controlling a little airborne bird. When you compare my in-game images to the real-life excavation plans of what's physically still there, you can see there's quite a lot of similarity. The overall shape of the fort has been kept. You can kind of see the lines of where the barracks would be. Obviously, like I said, in the game, there's snow over everything, so it's really difficult to make out exactly what's there, but you get the idea. Even the angle of where Hadrian's Wall interconnects with the line of the fort is pretty spot on. You've got the angled corner turrets. The central headquarters and commander's office and stuff has kind of been shugled about in the centre because, spoiler by the way, kind of give the fort an excuse of actually being in the game. They've shugled this central bit to make it a puzzle to solve to get a legendary weapon, which I got and I don't use because it's not that good. And yes, I did collect the legendary weapon thinking, oh, maybe it's got some sort of connection to the fort. Maybe it's going to be some sort of cool Roman thing. No, something Norse, which, you know, fits with the theme of the game. But like, if it's found on Hadrian's Wall, it's not going to be a bloody Viking weapon, is it? No. But in the centre of the real Housesteads fort, there was, of course, granaries, a hospital, the headquarters building, and the commander's house. Which, assuming from the look of this new in-game bit where the puzzle is, it looks like they've still got the commander's house and they've just got rid of the other bits. And for some reason there's water in the middle and like a river. I don't know where they got that from, but you know, they've done a good job with the rest of the fort, so I'm not bothered if they decide to make it a pond, honestly. Another really interesting bit that they've kept is the Via Praetoria and the East Gate are still very, very visible. That's the road heading out to the east, but the Via Decumana is covered. That's the road heading out to the West Gate, which is very much covered over by the snow. Again, I don't really know why they decided to cover the fort in snow. I guess it's maybe because it's not central to the main gameplay. I don't know, maybe just to kind of let it be there, but they didn't have to put too much effort into making it a fully fledged fort because it's not central to the gameplay whatsoever and it's the wrong time period. So maybe that's kind of what they were going for. I don't know. So enough about what they have included and why I think it's really cool. Now I would like to turn to two main things actually, which they have not included for some reason, but they're still two very, very big parts of Housesteads Roman fort. And the big thing missing is the outer vicus. Housesteads is renowned for the fact that it was not just a Roman fort, but it had a massive civilian settlement attached to the outside of it. And this would be, you know, merchants, soldiers' families, kids, women, all that. They'd be living outside the fort. This was a very, very big settlement, which at some point in the late 3rd century, it was actually abandoned completely. And it's thought that the people who lived in the outer settlement either dispersed or a lot of them moved inside the fort for some sort of security reason. So there's clearly some sort of threat, maybe from the north. In the game, there is a couple of ruined houses on the outskirts of the wall, not that far, but there's really not that many of them to suggest this massive civilian settlement like archaeology has recently uncovered. But yet again, the outskirts of the fort are also covered in snow, so maybe these two houses are meant to represent the other ruined houses which maybe lie under the massive amount of snow, and the creators just thought, just dust the landscape with snow, and that takes out a big chunk of work for us making this fort. There's a notion that there's houses there, but they're not actually visible. There's also no Mithraeum. Mithraea were centres of cult worship for the god Mithras. I did briefly mention him in my Religion on Hadrian's Wall video, which I made many moons ago. cringe when I watch it, but it's because it's, you know, it's an early video on the channel, alright? Be kind. But the Cult of Mithras is a whole other kettle of fish, which I'll be dedicating its own little video to. But also, there's a very interesting tie within Assassin's Creed Valhalla and the Cult of Mithras, which I haven't fully found out myself yet playing the game. And I'm going to stop myself before I give too many big spoilers, because I screamed when I first found out this piece of information, but I'm going to hold on to it, and you'll see it in a future video once I've completed the game. And we'll do an Eagle Bearer's Guide Mithras. How does that sound? Smash that like button if you want to see some Mithras. I'm absolutely joking, you don't have to do that, it's fine, don't worry about it. And the other major thing, which I have to talk about when talking about Housesteads, is the murder house. You heard me right, the murder house. This is something that I learned about in class, and whilst I was actually doing my research and going back through notes and articles and links and stuff, I feel like it's suffered damnatio memoriae on its own, because barely anybody speaks about it anymore. The Housesteads Vicus is home to an ancient murder mystery. As I just said, there are a couple of ruined houses on the outside of the fort, but there's no exact reconstruction of the murder house, which is a shame. I feel like that would have been a good inclusion, because you can get away with that in the game. But essentially the murder house was a house, and under a level of clay in the floor, archaeologists found 2 skeletons, one of an adult male and one of an adult female, and the adult male had a piece of broken sword stuck in his ribs. Hence the murder house. This man was murdered, or maybe he killed the woman and then killed himself, or maybe she killed him and then killed herself. We don't know what happened here. There's so many possibilities, and obviously we're never going to find out the answers. They're both dead, and they've both been dead for a very long time, and they were buried under the floorboards. So this is probably the killer's house, and he's buried his victims under the floor. We have no idea. And that's kind of why I love archaeology, because we're just never gonna get the full answer, are we? But don't worry, for those of you who are squeamish, I don't have any photos of the skeletons. That might be a little bit against YouTube TOS, I'm not sure about that. But they're there if you want to go and look them up yourself. But I'm quite sad that that wasn't included in the game. Of course, there are the ruined houses outside. They could have just chucked 2 skeletons in one, I don't know. They could have alluded to it somehow. But I guess as well, they couldn't include the murder house in Valhalla either, because those 2 skeletons would still be under the floorboards, so they wouldn't be visible on the surface. So they could only really make a house with 2 rooms, and that wouldn't have any indicator whatsoever. But I mean, the Assassin's Creed team have included incredibly minute details that nobody else would notice except for an archaeologist or ancient historian before, so I don't know. But I went looking and could not find. Alas, we've got nae murder house. Some final thoughts, conclusions, well wishes and all that cool stuff. Housesteads is a very, very cool fort. Overall, I would say. The Assassin's Creed team, I don't really know who to thank for this. The Assassin's Creed team, Ubisoft, Eivor herself, I don't know. Whoever they are, they've done a really good job at creating this replica, although it's not an exact replica. I get it, they've got a whole game to build, they're not going to waste their time recreating every single minor historical detail. But the fort, and to be honest, the whole of Hadrian's Wall that they have included, is pretty good, and more that can be expected for a game about Vikings, because that's not at all related. And as I have said multiple times throughout this video, it's not at all central to the storyline, or at least so far. I had to take time out of my own gameplay and out of my own story to ride north to Hadrian's Wall and to Housesteads forts to find them, if they were even included in the game. But there is no story quest that has sent me to Housesteads on its own so far. It's a shame as well that it's been covered over in snow, but again, that's just because it's not central and it's not the right time period that they're really focusing on. So why would they, waste time and money and resources building up a fort that's going to sit at the very tippy-toppy of the map and not really be used much? This, of course, has been a very, very brief and quick introduction to Housesteads Roman Fort. I could talk for Scotland about this, along with Hadrian's Wall, so if you'd like another video on Housesteads where I just talk about Housesteads disattached, is that a word? Disattached from this game, please let me know in the comments and I'll get round to it at some point. But I hope you enjoyed that brief introduction to Housesteads Roman Fort through the eyes of Eivor, who was of course our trusty companion this time round. Yes, that's right, I am now expanding the Eagle Bearer's Guide to include as many Assassin's Creed games as I can, not just Odyssey, although Odyssey is my idol, it's my bread and butter, it is my favourite game of all time. It's everything to me. But that'll be it for this week. Thank you so much for joining me on that little journey to North England. Once again, all of my bibliography will be included in the description box below if you'd like to go and have a little read or fact check me for some reason, if you really have to. Alongside all the links to all of my other social medias. But I also do have a Twitter and Instagram dedicated to just archaeology stuff and history stuff if you'd prefer to just keep it in that channel, you know? Don't forget to give it a like if you liked it, or if you didn't, because the dislike button doesn't really work anymore. Haha! And don't forget to subscribe as well. Thank you so much for watching this week, everybody. I had so much fun. I've been so excited to get this video completely finished and made and brought to you. Shout out to Jim. Tatty bye, and I shall see you all next Tuesday. Bye!